How's it going, everybody? Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes continuing on with the Daybreak Show. Happy to have in studio from Mason Transit, Chris Wilder. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Chris, you are the operations coordinator. We're going to talk a little bit about how Mason Transit's been doing over the last year or so with COVID. A lot of things have been changing in the last even week or two here, so it'd be good to get you on. Currently, how has the Transit Authority been doing over the last year, and kind of where are we at now?
We've been doing pretty good. We've had a lot of hiccups here and there, a lot of rule changes, and it's countless updates and, having to, restructure how we're doing our operations and stuff to keep employees safe and passengers safe. And it's been definitely a busy time. It seems like right now we're starting to taper off a little bit. Things are getting a little easier to follow. Now we're following the CDC guidelines as far as the masks, and right now there's some, how would I say it? So the public, with the CDC and they, fully vaccinated people can now take their masks off.
Right.
They don't understand that on the ramp and when they're on the transit property, they still have to continue to wear the mask. So
Sure.
We're constantly having to remind them that, this is still a requirement, and usually they're pretty compliant.
Yeah. I mean, the feds can kind of let people know here's their guidelines, but it is down to the individual businesses and transit authorities that make those decisions. Okay, very good. You see, when the Mason Transit buses are going through town here, the drivers are wearing their masks. It says it on the reader boards as well. Has there been any difficulty, because I know you drive outside county too, has it been difficult coordinating with the other counties in regards to the safety protocols, or no?
No, not so much. We've, pretty much our passengers have been, pretty compliant, and they know what the rules and, all the regulations and stuff are. And
Sure.
It's, all the transit agencies are working pretty closely together to make sure that, everybody's in compliant. And it's, So if we're doing the right thing, it makes it easier for inner city to be doing the right thing. And we don't, so everybody kind of knows what they're supposed to be doing. So
how is it at the Transit Community Center, either just outside and around the center, but even if you go into the building, still masked because it's Mason Transit property?
Yes. Anytime you're on a transportation facility or a bus stop or shelter, everybody still has to wear a mask. It's, we're trying to make it simple for everybody.
Sure.
And
It's hard to have a rule at the shop, perhaps, versus a rule at the transit center. And want to make it consistent for everybody. Routes were scaled back over the last year, but now it looks like some routes are starting to come back.
We're adding, we're adding a route. We're adding some routes for weekend routes for the 1 and 3, I believe, and the Route 8's coming back 2 days. 2 times a day? Yeah, 2 trips a day.
That's
so
great.
In the morning and in the afternoon. So
what have you heard either from the drivers or in staff meetings about the impact to the riders throughout the county as we had to throttle back a little on some of the bus routes? I mean, it's got to be tough.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls. We try not to leave anybody behind.
Right.
And we have ride recoveries, so we actually have some of our busier routes will have buses shadowing buses just to make sure. Sometimes we'll get a call saying, hey, this passenger's downtown. I'm coming back to the shop. They need to go to the other side of town. So we'll have an operations supervisor pick them up and bring them where they need to go, because we don't want to leave anybody behind.
Right. The other thing, I guess, too, is Dial a Ride. How's that going?
Dial a Ride's starting to pick up a little bit. We have bus capacities, so. And it depends on travel parties, but, we trying to keep single passengers 6 feet apart. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
It's been a real big challenge for us. But again, we have the ride recovery, so, we can, but the Dial a Ride, it's easier because they can schedule and they know who's going to be on the bus.
Right.
But it's the flaggers. So if we have a Dial a Ride coming through and we have a flagger, it's like, sometimes the driver will have to stop and call it in and say, hey, I got a person that's trying to get into town, so we'll send somebody out to pick them up. What
are you guys looking at here as the rest of the summer unfolds and into the fall? How are things going to be expanding even more?
Hopefully we're going to be opening up. I mean, we're going through a driver training class right now. So we're trying to get more people on board, but we're hoping to be opening. We're going to open as soon as we can. It really depends on when the TSA's lifting and the state's lifting all the mandates, and we have a transportation safety that we have to follow as far as like bus capacities and stuff like that. That's our real hurdle right now. We're kind of waiting to hear from the state to see when that's going to shift. When that shifts, it's going to be a pretty big deal for us.
Cool.
Because then we can start getting more people on the bus. And
what about those early morning bus rides up to Bremerton? How have they been? We've seen the buses, still picking up people here in town.
Yeah.
Did that slow off a little, or was that always consistent?
It did. When our capacities went down, I think people started just taking themselves to work and stuff. But we still do the worker drivers still, drive to the shipyard, and they still have their riderships, I think, doing fairly decent still. Again, we have to shadow. A lot of times we have to shadow those buses that are, those busier routes, just to make sure people are getting to work on time. And
well, it's great that people are utilizing them.
Yeah.
I remember, before, you'd see that thing full up and folks reading and getting a little extra couple minutes of napping in before they get up to Bremerton. So that's a really cool deal, a really great service for folks. So again, for Mason Transit Authority property, that includes the Transit Community Center, that includes the shop on Johns Prairie, that also includes all the bus stops. Am I missing anything else?
If we deal with the public directly, we have to have a mask on.
Okay.
I mean, if you're not dealing with the public, then we're doing basically you don't. If you're working alone, you don't have to mask on.
Sure.
But now that the CDC guidelines are out there with vaccinated people and unvaccinated people, then you're not working with the public. The unvaccinated folks, can have their mask off at JP. We're still requiring visitors to have it on because we're not sure whether they've been vaccinated or not. We're still going through all the self-checks. When you enter the building, you have to take your temperature. You have to sign off saying that you're not sick. We're still fogging the buses at the end of shift. They're getting detailed, pretty frequently. We're not a whole lot's changed for us as far as transit goes. It's just now that if you're vaccinated, you have a little more leeway. Yeah. But when you're downtown, you don't really.
Sure.
Sure.
So. Well, it's better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
And again, at the end of the day, like we mentioned at the beginning, it's up to individual businesses. And Mason Transit's a business, and they are in the business of moving people from here to there.
And we want to keep our employees safe.
Safe, and the riders safe as well. You can always find route information on the Mason Transit website. You can also find route information on the different stops around where Mason Transit has to offer. There's new routes that'll be coming out through as the summer gets going. The Dial-A-Ride is there for folks as well. And just know that things are being safe and clean and properly protected for you. It's okay to ride Mason Transit. Chris Wilder, Operations Coordinator, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.